Hey, hi chess fans. In this video we will look at the game between Mikhail Botvinnik with white and Vladimir Alatortsev with black. Mikhail Botvinnik was the guy who was the strongest chess player after World War II and also a teacher in the Soviet chess school. He was a teacher, for example, of Karpov, Kramnik and Kasparov. And Alatortsev was the guy after which the line with bishop e7 was named and the Queen's Gambit declined. The game was played in Moscow in 1944. Botvinnik played d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, c4, c6, Slav defense, knight c3, d takes c, a4, bishop f5, e3, the Dutch variation, e6, bishop c4, bishop b4, castle, knight b2 d7, queen e2. The purpose is to push the pawn forward to e4 and maybe later develop with the rook and also develop the bishop along this diagonal. Black plays bishop to g6, main move. Question number 1 for this video. Why is black playing bishop g6? Pause the video and try to find the answer. Okay, black plays bishop g6 to avoid e4 with tempo. So if black was to play castle, for example, which is another playable move, white could play e4 and now bishop g6, and white can consolidate a nice center. And white has a little advantage here. On the other hand, after bishop g6, if white now plays e4 to get his center, black has the resource bishop takes, b takes bishop, and winning a pawn. White can still play something like bishop a3 and try to get some dynamic compensation, but this is a very sharp game, and objectively maybe white can still hold, but definitely this is not a nice position to play. So Botvinnik instead played knight to e5. Okay, Alatortsev took, d takes, bishop, knight to d7, f4. And question number 2 in this video. What is the problem now for white in this position? Pause your video and try to find what's the problem for white in this position. Okay, white has established pawns here in the center and also gets some squares. But the problem is that this bishop here is not very active and is not having a lot of places to go to, and also this bishop here is locked in and blocked by his own pieces. Whereas white's pieces are much better. The bishop here has on b4 has a good function. Bishop g6 has a lot of square, and the knight can flexibly go into some of these weak squares. So Botvinnik will have to solve these problems throughout the game. Let's have a look. Knight to b6. The rook takes the open file. Okay, that's one resource to have. Queen to h4. And now there's an exchange of pieces here. And in this position here, a few pieces have been exchanged. You could argue this is not bad for white. And after bishop d2, castle, question number 3. What resource does white have in this position? What tactical resource to reach a strategic goal can white have in this position here? Pause your video. Okay, the resource that white has is to reroute the knight to d6. And this is a tactical resource because the knight can go to e4. And if the bishop now takes, the knight can go back and take, and this position is very pleasant for white. So Alatortsev did not take, but put the bishop back. And now the knight jumps into d6. And you could argue white has improved his position a lot. Okay, Alatortsev took the knight out right away and attacked the pawn, but Botvinnik now has a resource here. The bishop protects the pawn, and Botvinnik can play with this resource. Rook to c8, rook ac8, ac1, f6, a5. The game continued. Okay, the bishops are rerouted. White grabs some space. The bishop harasses the rook, drops back, rook to c3, bishop c6, rook to d1. Okay, now the rooks and the bishops are kind of moving back and forth. And question number 4. White has this nice resource here, but what's white's problem here in this position? Pause the video and try to formulate what is white's problem here. Okay, white's problem here is that he has this resource on d6, but it's very hard to make progress. The rooks are blocked behind the pawns, and it's hard to get them out of there to develop any play. And this bishop here has an important function of protecting this pawn, and if it was to move away anywhere, let's say here, black could take out this pawn and would suddenly be material up. So this bishop here can also not move away to any other square, because it is bound to the protection of this pawn. So white's problem here is that it's really hard to make progress. So what to do? Agree on a draw? So Botvinnik made the decision here to play e4. It's a move that is objectively bad. Also, if you look at this game with an engine, the valuation suddenly turns around and drops. And why did Botvinnik play this move? Well, Botvinnik played this move obviously to invite d takes e. And I suppose now this rook has a function. The files open up, and also this bishop is free. And maybe Botvinnik was thinking that this pawn here is something that he can deal with and maybe attack with the rook or the king throughout the game. But just in terms of engine, this is now a position where black is better. But Botvinnik got some play and chose to go for this risky line. Okay, the game continued. Bishop b6. The bishop is now free and ready to attack. Rook to d7. a4 grabbing some space. h5. g5. Rook e8. Bishop c7 protecting the pawn. King to g6. Alatortsev is now trying to bring the king into the center. It's a very active plan, and I suppose he had his good reasons for it. Very interesting to note in a position like this to make the decision to activate your king towards the center. Okay, rook to f2. King activates in the center and can actually not so easily be attacked because the bishop protects. Rook f1, rook f8. Again, we have reached a position where kind of the rooks maneuver back and forth, and it's hard to make progress here. And now it's black who feels good about the position and plays a move that maybe is objectively not the best move, but opens up the position. Okay, f takes, king takes, g6. This pawn is now advancing, and the rook is taking the king away from getting to attack this pawn. And also this move ferments the pawn on h5 as a weakness. Okay, rook to f8. And question number 5. What tactical liabilities does black have in this position? Pause your video and try to list the tactical liabilities that black has. Okay, the first tactical liability is the weak bishop on d5 that can be attacked and is only protected by the king. The second weakness is the king in the middle. It's very active, but with these pieces on the board and the position now opened, this king is very weak against mating attacks. And lastly, the pawn on h5 is a weakness that can be attacked as well. So let's have a look how Botvinnik tried to exploit these tactical liabilities. Rook d2 attacks the bishop, and the bishop already cannot move to so many places. If black tries to get rid of his tactical liability of this bishop that can be attacked, bishop g8, white can exploit the tactical liability of the king being able to attack, and also the weak pawn. Okay, so the bishop cannot so easily move away. What if the king tries to get out of the middle, out of the center? Then we have rook c5 attacking the bishop, and if the bishop moves away, we can take the pawn out. So the best move in this position already is actually e3, which allows Botvinnik to take this pawn. Okay, bishop e4, still black has to kind of make the tactics work. The plan is to protect the bishop with f5, and similarly to white create such a structure here, where the pawn and the bishop protect each other. Okay, Botvinnik now played bishop to b6. Question number 6 in this video: what is the purpose behind this move? Pause your video and try to find the answer. Okay, the purpose behind this move is to play bishop to d4 and trying to win this bishop by driving the king away from the protection of the bishop. But this also has a deeper prophylactic goal. Botvinnik knows that black wants to protect the bishop on e4 with f5, and by playing bishop to d4, white is also attacking the pawn on g7, making a monster pass pawn out of this pawn on g6. So there is an immediate tactical reason, but also a deeper prophylactic positional reason. Okay, the game continued indeed, f5, and let's have a look. If the rook would take the pawn here, which is en prise, of course white can pin this rook to the king, and black is losing. And if black does not play f5, but for example rook c8, white has the resource bishop d4, and after king f5, rook f2, winning the bishop. That was the tactical justification. And so black plays f5 to protect the bishop and get rid of this short-term tactical complications. But now white still has bishop to d4 with the long-term attack on the g7 pawn. And if you look at this position here, the rook is protecting this pawn at the moment, but black also wants to make progress, and it's hard for black to make progress without eliminating the d6 pawn, which is also a pass pawn. It's hard to take with the king because of the discovered attack. So actually Alatortsev decided to take out this pawn and to allow white to take the pawn on g7. Okay, so now white does not have the passed pawn on d6 anymore, but white now has the passed pawn on g6. The game continued. Rook takes, bishop takes, f6, going to attack the pawn. Rook g3. Okay, white really now tries to play with this resource of the passed pawn on g3, and it's something that black has to deal with immediately. Okay, so in the game, black played bishop d5, trying to play against the passed pawn, but actually black had a drawing resource here, a tactical drawing resource. Question number 7 in this video. Pause your video and try to find the drawing resource for black. Okay, black could have played rook to f2 with the idea, if the king moves, to play f4 double attack, and after king takes, pawn takes, king takes, bishop takes, we have a ending with different colored bishops, and this is an absolute clear and easy draw. Okay, so probably with this strong passed pawn, Alatortsev would have loved to draw, but he didn't see the resource rook to f2, but played instead bishop to d5. Okay, the game continued. Rook g5, rook f1, king e3, rook f3, bishop g8, bishop d6, king e6, bishop b8, rook b3, attacking the pawn, rook takes, check, rook g4, rook h8, and rook takes g6. So there has been again an exchange. White has exchanged the passed pawn on the g file against the passed pawn on the h file. And so question number 8 in this video, and the last exercise in this video, Botvinnik tried to play with this pawn here and gave up the pawn here. Why is it easier for white to coordinate his pieces to push this passed pawn? And how can white coordinate his rook and his bishop to support this passed pawn? Pause your video and try to find an answer why Botvinnik exchanged his passed pawn on the g5 for the passed pawn on the h5. Okay, the answer is that as this pawn moves forward, the rook can support the pawn by protecting it from the side, and the bishop controls potentially the promoting square on h8 and can support the pawn along this diagonal, like this. Okay, so let's have a look how Botvinnik was implementing this plan. h5 pushing the pawn, rook g4, bishop f4, bishop f7, rook h6, rook d6. So already the bishop is coordinating to push the pawn forward, and also coordinating with the rook to swing the rook over with check. King c5, h6. Now both the rook and the bishop protect the passed pawn. h4, and the rook attacks the bishop, and those checks is nothing to be afraid of. Rook moves away, and again the rook protects the pawn here while the bishop protects controls the next step, in this case already the promoting square for this bishop, for this pawn. So from this position here, very interesting, check out how white rearranges his pieces and how everything is designed to support the passing pawn, and in this position Alatortsev resigned, and Botvinnik won the game. Thanks a lot for watching, see you next time.